Well, friends of Gundogan Maldini, we are very close to that second leg match between Real Madrid and Manchester City at the Bernabeu, which I will commentate on Movistar, of course. We will have previews of that match. We will have a lot of things about that match, of course, but I also want to analyze what Manchester City did yesterday against Newcastle. The match was played yesterday, as you well know. I couldn't watch the match live because it coincided with the Osasuna versus Real Madrid game. I made the video for the Osasuna versus Real Madrid game, and then I had to go to Movistar to do the post-match program of the day, plus the Villarreal Valencia in the cup, meaning I didn't have time to watch it. So I've now watched it calmly, and we're going to analyze it because it's a match that serves quite well as a guide for what Manchester City might do at the Bernabeu next Wednesday. Logically, it's the Marmoush match with 3 goals from Marmoush. I have little doubt that Marmoush will be a starter at the Bernabeu for many reasons. Because yesterday he performed very well, because he scored those 3 goals, a player who is obviously on a streak. Logically, Pep Guardiola has to play him. It must be said, logically, Madrid brings a great result with that 2-3, but a 1-goal advantage is by no means definitive at these levels. And it's true that Manchester City, in the first leg, and I will analyze it in the preview we are going to do for Wednesday's match, gave a rather poor impression in many aspects, and he was unrecognizable in many aspects. That's true. But yesterday, Guardiola brought in Nico González and Marmoush, and pay attention to the game Nico González played, which we will see later because we are going to include the Weisekout report. The game Nico González played yesterday was also excellent. And I think with those 2 changes, the team improves a lot. Real Madrid will be making a mistake if they became overconfident, which they obviously won't. There is a high level of players in both teams, making the match very dangerous for Real Madrid. Let's analyze what Pep Guardiola did, why he changed the team so much. Obviously, we also cannot compare Newcastle with Real Madrid. That's true. But yesterday, Manchester City played very well in ball distribution, very well in the speed of circulation, and then also found the long ball very well against Newcastle's pressure to Marmoush and Erling Haaland, because I will also analyze how the two coexisted. Frankly, well, both Haaland, like Marmoush. So let's analyze everything right now. Come on, let's go. Well, let's go, friends of Gundogan Maldini, of course. Yes, I think he will be a starter. Come on, some big surprise, Marmoush. Let's see exactly. The starting 11 of Manchester City yesterday against Newcastle, the changes compared to the first leg against Real Madrid and what the changes might be for the second leg. And let's look at the starting 11s. Also Newcastle's, of course, because City didn't play alone. There were 2 teams, but let's mainly focus on Manchester City, which started with Ederson, Nico Luis, Kusanov, Stones, and Guardiola. Then you will see some movements in some clips from the match that I have prepared for you. With Gundogan, Guardiola was much more positioned on the left this time, not so much inside. And yes, the giant Nico González, who had a great match. He was the engine of the midfield. We'll see that later with the Weisekout report. And Gundogan with Phil Foden inside. This position of Phil Foden caused quite a bit of trouble for Newcastle. Marmoush on the left, but also cutting inside, and Sabinho quite close to the wing. What Phil Foden did was link up with the midfield at times, and Marmoush did it too. We'll see that later as well. The 3-man defense was of little use to Newcastle. Dubravka, Trippier, Schär, then Hawley, Murphy with Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, Willock, Isaac, and Gordon. It's a good midfield. Newcastle has a good team. But the truth is they were thrashed by Manchester City yesterday, especially in the first minutes. The first half was practically a dance by Manchester City. Gave no chance to Newcastle. Here we have how they are congratulating Ederson, because the pass for the first goal came from Ederson. Marmoush scored 3 goals. He had a great match. He is a forward with a lot of mobility, as he already showed at Eintracht, and he is a player who can play as a second striker like he did yesterday. But yesterday, of course, he was blessed. Everything went perfectly. For Marmoush yesterday, 3 very different goals. Let's see, this is the first one. There you see the long ball from Ederson. That's why they are congratulating him. Long ball from Ederson. It's really an assist from Ederson. There the ball flies to Marmoush, and then Marmoush easily gets past Trippier and scores that goal with a touch against Dubravka. That was the first goal, but he scored 2 very different goals, because the second goal shows a player who has a very good ability to move between the lines, Marmoush. And here Gundogan found him very well. Here you see it. Gundogan's pass to Marmoush, and then Marmoush receives inside the area and scores the goal without any problem. This was the second goal he scored. And the third goal he scored, well, a pass from Sabinho from the right flank. Watch out for Sabinho. Yesterday, Manchester City decided to play with only 1 winger, which I think is what they will do at the Bernabeu, and it will be Sabinho. In the end, they brought in fast players and players with more freshness. with more flair and younger, with more speed and more muscle, and with more capacity, with more stamina. I meant to say Savinho, Bas Marmoush, Nico González, Foden on the inside. All of this greatly improved the team from the perspective of speed and intensity. There's the pass from Savinho for Marmoush's goal, who practically reaches the penalty spot. I really like Marmoush. I really like Marmoush, how Marmoush moved. And we also have to analyze the match by Nico González. Because, of course, let's first look at Marmoush. To wrap up, the topic of Marmoush, who will certainly be a starter, later. We'll make a preview video where I'll analyze a bit what the starting team might be for that match. But Marmoush, 3 shots out of 4 attempted, 3 dribbles out of 4 attempted, and certainly was very accurate. Notice that he only made 16 passes. That is to say, with the ball, practically, he didn't play the entire match, obviously, but with the ball, he practically didn't participate much. But he was absolutely decisive in the match. These are the actions. But speaking of participation, what really changed the team's outlook, clearly, without a doubt, was this man, Nico González. Here we have him with Bruno Guimaraes. Nico González clearly improved the midfield. He left out Kovacic, left out Bernabeu Silva, left out Kevin De Bruyne to bring in a more positional pivot, Nico González, which is not exactly the position he played at Porto, because you saw it, I mentioned it in a video. It's not exactly that position, which is the one Nico González played at Porto, but he was frankly good. Let's first look at the data of Nico González. I have no doubt whatsoever that he will be a starter at the Bernabeu. Anything else would be a huge surprise, because it would also go against this match and against what is needed, certainly by Manchester City. Let's take a look at Nico González. Look, 112 actions, of which Nico González played a spectacular match in the position that Guardiola precisely needed. He was the Rodri of this match. Not reaching that level logically, but he did fulfill that role. 112 actions, 102 correct. The only thing he didn't do was reach the 3/4 of the field as much, which is true that at Porto he did, even because sometimes he played more as an interior. The role changes a bit. 102. Actions completed out of 112 attempted. 97% of passes. 96 passes, 93 correct. But he only missed 3 forward passes, with lateral and backward passes being absolutely secure. And the actions on the field, here you have it. That's why I say he didn't reach the 3/4 of the field as much. He didn't reach it as much. He played a bit inside, always inside, but he never reached the shooting position or the position to make a final or penultimate pass. But that's exactly what Guardiola asked of him. Why? Because that role, that aspect was already being done by Phil Foden, who also played a very good match. Phil Foden is the one who linked up with Nico González. Here we have the team set up, very clear, right? You'll see it here. Look, Nico González. Nico González clearly in the central midfield, Gundogan as an interior midfielder, and Nico Luis practically acting as another interior midfielder. And Phil Foden here linking up with Haaland and Marmoush from behind. That Haaland-Marmoush pair worked very well. Haaland often making runs and Marmoush coming to receive, and they understood each other wonderfully. Logically, here you have another example. Nico González, Gundogan, Misamsham, or is it that Marmoush or Rampa? Right with Haaland making the run. Here you see how Haaland makes the run, and Marmoush is behind to receive, with Phil Foden always on the inside. Phil Foden offering himself a lot on the inside, something he did constantly. And then in the pressing, the team was good. Here we have it. They were much more active in the pressing. The players who played have more stamina. Marmoush. Phil Foden on the inside arriving much more, because if they play on the wing, it takes much longer to reach the press. Right there, isn't it? With Marmoush waiting, with Nico González and with Savinho. A team much more involved, much more engaged in the pressing and in what they had to do. But as I said, this man, Nico González, clearly changed the face of Manchester City. He changed the face. It's a match that should obviously concern Real Madrid, this improvement of City in some aspects. We'll see. Tomorrow you'll have the percentages of the knockout stage. Logically, I considered Madrid the favorite before the first leg. Well, I have to consider them the favorite with a 1-goal advantage for the return leg. Obviously, to qualify, yes, but how much of a favorite? Well, we'll see it tomorrow in the video. Certainly, Marmoush here is jumping for joy because of that hat-trick. Let's look at some details. I'm going to stop finishing Friends of Gundogan Maldini. The second half, honestly, was practically unnecessary with the 3-0. But let's look at some details. For example, what I was telling you about Phil Foden. The match Phil Foden played coming to receive. Well, here you will also have it. 53 actions, 70% correct, 85% of passes. And notice what I showed you earlier about the actions. of Nico González, how Phil Foden complemented Nico González perfectly. Nico González moving more in this area. And Phil Foden ahead, but across the entire attacking front. It was a very complete match, of course. With whom did he make the most passes? With Nico González. That connection. Nico González, Phil Foden inside, which I think will be the starting lineup. That is Foden inside, Sabinho on the right, Marmoush on the left, Haaland, and then the double pivot. With Nico González and Gundogan, Bernabeu Silva might come in there. I have some doubts about that. What I think will be left out is De Bruyne, but we will analyze that for that return match. And Nico González, 24 actions, 14 with Sabinho. A very complete match from Manchester City, especially in the first half when there was a match, evidently. And the hero Marmoush, Haaland did less, but he is always a threat, by the way. He had a small knock at the end, but it seems to be nothing for Haaland. And here we have Gundogan behind with Sabinho and Marmoush for that return match, which is going to be thrilling at the Bernabeu. Let's finish with some more general aspects of the match. The possession was very clearly in favor of Manchester City. Notice that Newcastle tried to press quite a bit and didn't allow for much long possession. What happened is that Ederson responded very well with those long balls, the first goal that you've already seen. And offensive actions, 43 from City, compared to 26 from Newcastle. And regarding shots, here you have 11 shots from City, 7 on target, 3 from Newcastle, and only 1 on target. In other words, a much improved City with those modifications made by Pep Guardiola, who logically needs to find the right team for the return match. Has he found it? Well, I think so. Logically, Madrid has to remain my favorite, but I think so. This Newcastle match makes it clear that the tie for me is still much more open than it seems. Madrid should not be overconfident. We will talk a lot about the tie. Friends of Gundogan Maldini, of course. A hug by...